The NFL's back, and there's no better way to stay up to date on the latest from around the league than listening to the Around the NFL podcast. Join me, Dan Hanzus, and my buds, Mark Sessler and Greg Rosenthal, for the latest football news with a dash of mirth.
We are three guys embarking on our 11th season together. 11 seasons, can't be wrong. Come along for the ride.
Fresh content almost every day, all season long.
Listen to Around the NFL on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Brought to you by the first ever Toyota Grand Highlander.
This is where projects come to life. Our showrooms are designed to inspire with the latest products from top brands, curated in an inviting, hands-on environment, and a team of industry experts to support your project. We'll be there to make sure everything goes as planned, from product selection to delivery coordination. At Ferguson Bath, Kitchen, and Lighting Gallery, your project is our priority.
Find great brands like Thermador at your local showroom or visit us online at ferguson.com/build.
Welcome to the Giants Huddle Podcast. John Schmelk with you. As always, we're joined by Sean O'Hara as we recap the season. It's all brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the New York Football Giants. Sean, the 2023 Giants season is in the books. A lot to talk about moving forward.
Yeah.
But I'm going to throw the most general, nebulous question of all time your way. Sean, what do you think about the 2023 season?
Hope I never see it again. You know what? It was...
In fairness, we have seen worse in past
We have.
years.
And you know what? Like, I think the expectation this year was so much higher given the playoff victory from the year before.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, right out of the gate, week one, I mean, we open up with the Cowboys at home, and things just went sideways. And you lose your best offensive lineman in that game in Andrew Thomas, and it's almost like...
And your kicker gets hurt, by the way, which costs you games later in the year.
Yeah, I mean, it was the injuries were just so mind-boggling this whole season. I mean, Daniel Jones missed a couple games with his neck, and then, you know, a non-contact ACL injury. Like, that's worst-case scenario. So I feel like there were so many things that the ball just bounced not in our favor this season, but yet there were so many close games. Like, this season, what I'll remember most about it is the games that we should have won. Like, we should have beat Buffalo in Buffalo. Like, that game should have won. We should have beat the Jets at home in that monsoon. We should have beat the Rams. We should have beat Philly down in Philly. Like, despite all of the injuries and all of the times where the ball didn't bounce our way, there were so many opportunities to beat some good teams. And I think that this team showed a lot of resilience. What I'll take away from this is I think the fact that the Giants won games with their third-string practice squad quarterback says a lot about the team, a lot about the coaching staff, and a lot about the ability of Brian Daboll to keep all this together. Because I don't know, in years past, a season like this would have just completely unraveled, and it would have been a complete debacle for the last two home games to end the season. And yet the Giants, beat the Eagles at the end of the season, final victory, and then should have beat the Rams the week before. So, I think there's a lot to unpack from the season. But, I think when you look at offensively, the points are still an issue. Like, that's the one thing that for the last 2 years has really hamstrung this entire team. Because there's times when the defense has kept them in games, and just the inability to score points. When you look around the league, like, teams are throwing up 40 burgers left and right, and that has to be the point of emphasis again.
Hey, and look at the games the Giants won, right? 31 points against Arizona, 30 points against Washington. They scored over 20 in the other game against Washington. They scored 27 against Philadelphia. They scored over, 25 or 26 against the Packers in that win? It was somewhere in that area, right?
Yeah, the Monday night game.
So they scored over 23 points, 24 points in that game, too. You score points to give yourself a chance to win. You look at their losses, you're looking at 7 points, 10 points, 13 points, 14 points. You have to figure out a way to score. So let's go there. Let's start looking ahead. Because we've talked about this season throughout. We don't want to rehash the things we've said a bajillion times already. So where do you think the improvements have to happen the most for this team to finally start scoring more points more consistently?
Yeah, well, offensively, they've got to run the football better, more efficiently, more effectively. Too many times the run game was not just a zero gain, a negative gain. Like, there were too many negative runs again. Times when Saquon Barkley had a linebacker unblocked, standing right in the hole, or a defensive lineman that beat a tight end and is unblocked like too many times. And it happened in awful situations. 3rd and 1. There was a play down in Philly where we don't block Hassan Reddick. And, just stuff like that. Those self-inflicted wounds in certain situations is why you don't stay on the field on 3rd down. So the way to fix it, I think for the Giants, like first and foremost, the Giants have to get better at guard. Like, look, Evan Neal, no doubt about it, has to play better. Can he play better? Yes, I think he can play better. But it's on him. Like, look, Bobby Johnson, was just let go. He had a tough task. Evan Neal was banged up. I think he came into training camp ready to rock and roll, had a really good offseason, then got a concussion and then the ankle. And, it was a tough season for Evan Neal just to stay healthy. But the improvement from Evan Neal, it's got to be impactful. It's got to be a huge improvement. But you're good at left tackle. John Michael Schmitz, I think, showed that he's a high-quality, highly talented NFL center. And he's in his rookie year, at no point did he ever look physically outmatched. There are things that he can polish up. But
he was pushed back on some run plays a little bit on initial contact.
Yeah, but I also look at it like if you want to run the ball, John, you got to have 2 good guards. Yeah, like you look around the league, the best teams running the football, they have good guards. And good guards at the point of attack will help with the push, will help with all of that. So that's, to me, where offensively you got to figure out, you got to be better on 1st and 2nd down. 3rd down is kind of its own entity. So up front, I think there needs to be improvement with both guards. And then again, we're kind of having the same conversation, like points. Points are premium. Points in the red zone are huge.
And big plays, right?
Darren
you
Waller,
get points to big plays too, right?
Yeah, and Darius Slayton, had some big plays. I think Jalen Hyatt proved that he's a big play receiver. Like he's got big plays bottled up inside him. We just got to find a way to get. There were a lot of times where he was open or receivers were open, and we didn't have enough time to throw the ball or to make that play because the pass protection didn't hold up.
And you were saying something about Waller. I'm sorry, before I jumped on you.
Yeah, Waller, I think he would say it was disappointing in the fact that he just wasn't available and he was hurt and the hamstring was an issue again. But I think we saw in training camp like how valuable he is and what an asset he is to the offense when he's healthy and when he's out there. Like he is definitely a mismatch in the Giants' favor. So how can they build on that? And I think had he been healthy, maybe he would have been a little bit more of an impactful red zone player. But no doubt that's, you get the ball all the way down to the 20-yard line and then things get tougher. They need to be better in that area.
All right, I'm going to dive into the offensive line a little bit here. Shocking.
Okay.
We're going to do that with Sean here. You talk about John Michael Schmidt's line. I want to jump back to Evan Neal. So if you're approaching this with Evan Neal in this offseason now, do you start him at a tackle and let him fail into guard?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you explain why?
Yeah. Evan Neal's a tackle. For a lot of people that say, well, just move him into guard, like that, nothing is going to change at guard. The things that he is plagued with right now are his hands, his punch, and staying on his feet. Like he's on the ground way too much, and that's not going to change if you move him into guard. Like that doesn't just fix everything.
Being in a phone booth wouldn't help some of the speed issues outside?
No, it actually might even be worse because the guys inside are even bigger. So if you have a hard time staying on your feet, it's because your balance is you're either overextending, you're bending at your waist. I don't know that moving him into guard alleviates any of that. This is technique stuff. I think Evan Neal needs to get quicker with some of his footwork. I think what he gets in trouble is when he's got a speed rusher and he's so concerned about getting out there and defending that speed that he gives up all his power because his footwork is all over the place. Those are things that he can work on, he can improve on. But, Evan Neal coming out of college, I looked at him, I said, man, this guy's a road grader. Like he is a people mover. If you're going to ask Evan Neal to pass protect 47 times a game, that's not his forte. I think that I start off with the run game. Like that needs to be better. And I think when the offense is running on all cylinders and you're efficient on 1st and 2nd down, now 3rd down is not as much of an anomaly. It's not as much of a mountain to climb every single time. So that's a big part of it. I think you go back and look at Andrew Thomas. He struggled his rookie year. His second year, he was kind of up and down. He didn't really start playing really well until his 3rd year. And I think that's where we're at with Evan Neal.
And remember, by the way, Evan Neal was only started, I believe, I don't have it in front of me, I think 23 or 24 games because he had the couple playoff games. So it's really only just over one season. It's not even a full 2 seasons game-wise either.
Yeah, he's been banged up, missed a lot of time. And a lot like Andrew Thomas, I mean, he was young. I think just like Andrew Thomas, he couldn't buy a beer when the Giants drafted him. So he probably should have had another year at Alabama. And then this would have been his rookie year. But that being said, Evan Neal is a very conscientious player. Like, you know him from being around the building. Like, he's a hard worker. This
He's
guy's
always
a
on his
pro.
iPad, man.
Like, he studies, he takes notes. Like, he does everything right. So he's an easy kid to root for because he's willing to put in the time, and that he's not lazy. He's not one. He cares about his job. He cares about being great at what he's doing. So for him, it's really honing his craft. As an offensive lineman, you've got to eliminate the bad plays.
Yeah, absolutely. Those negative plays, to your point, put you in those 3rd and longs, and that's really why the Giants had struggles on 3rd downs this year, because they were in so many 3rd and 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 plus.
Yeah, and those guys you're going against are getting paid a heck of a lot of money. They're good players.
Yeah.
They are going to beat you at some point. Like, you are going to lose. You just can't beat yourself. Like, everybody can live with, hey, you know what, he got you on that play. You got beat, you gave up a sack. But you can't get beat because your technique is not sound, because your footwork is all over the place. That can't happen. The Giants collectively, not just Evan Neal, collectively as an offensive line, they got beat right now way too many times. And that was, Justin Pugh had a hand in that. Bredesen had a part in that. JMS had a part in that. Glowinski had a part in that. Like, if you get beat right now on the very first move, like, the quarterback doesn't have a chance. If you get beat late and you can wash the guy by it, the quarterback has a chance to step through and get around some of that. But that happened way too much this season.
All right, so the Giants, as you mentioned, they moved on from Bobby Johnson. They're looking for a new offensive line coach. If something's announced by the time this gets posted, I'll apologize ahead of time. We're going to try to get this up as soon as we can. What to you, Sean, as someone that's been in those rooms, makes a good offensive line coach, and what would you be looking for if you're sitting there and you're Brian Dable interviewing these offensive line coaches? What are you looking for in that person that would be leading that room for this team next year?
Well, I think when you look at this Giants O-line, they're very young, right? I mean, Andrew Thomas, as you kind of look at it, he's probably the most veteran guy going forward.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what Ben Bredesen's got going on. Justin Pugh, I mean, he was kind of, like in reserve mode, like, that was desperation bringing him in here. I don't know what Glowinski's future is going to look like, but Andrew Thomas is probably going to be your most veteran offensive lineman. But other than that, you've got some young pups. You've got, JMS and Evan Neal. So you need a teacher. You need somebody that excels in teaching the techniques, the crafts, as well as the scheme. Look, the NFL, if you make it to the NFL as an offensive lineman, you know a lot of technique. You know how to use your hands. You know about the footwork. You know all that stuff. You've got to fine-tune all that stuff. But really, where you get next level as an offensive lineman is understanding schemes. And when I say schemes, I'm not just talking about your offensive scheme. I'm talking about what defenses are trying to do to you. Week in and week out, you may have 3 teams that run the same 3-4 concepts or the same 3-4 scheme from a personnel standpoint. But they teach their linebackers to take on blocks differently. You have to know that week in and week out. You have to understand on defensive pressures on 3rd down, here's what they're trying to do to you. So that's where you go from being an average offensive line to a great offensive line. When you can anticipate what defenses are trying to do to you and how they're trying to stop you, that's when you know how to attack them and how to defend. So I think it's really two-pronged when you're looking at offensive line coaches. I need somebody that can help and teach technique. And I also need somebody that can help and break down schemes and what defense are trying to do to you. Pat Flaherty was the most instrumental offensive line coach I had, because he was the first O-line coach that I had that really taught me, here's why the defense is doing what they're doing. Here's why against this defense, we're playing the Rams, this Sam linebacker is going to wrong arm you because he has the safety filling outside. Those are things that you're not really taught in college. You're just looking at fronts and basic formations.
Right.
So those are the wrinkles that I think can help this offensive line grow to the next level.
You love turf. You're good at it. So you start a turf biz. Business grows, your savings grow. Become the most celebrated name in turf. Are you ready for all that life brings?
Giants Huddle Podcast is brought to you by Citizens Bank, the official bank of the New York Giants. From game day to every day, Citizens is made ready for Giants fans with insights, guidance, and solutions. Learn more at citizensbank.com. All right, I'm going to go through a couple other things and changes that happened. Sean, want to get your take from a player perspective. The Giants strength and conditioning coach moving on to Florida. We'll miss him. He was a great coach. Coach Fitzgerald. Fitzy was great. We loved having him here, but he found a good opportunity down there he wanted to take. And the Giants usually do a pretty good job of letting guys pursue other opportunities if it's something that they want. So another change there. The Giants have gone through some changes at the strength and conditioning coach over the past 10 years or so. They seem to kind of lock in there, explain for fans what exactly the strength and conditioning coach does. But I think people confuse them sometimes with the medical staff in terms of injury prevention and training, and they kind of conflate those two. And then same question with the offensive line. What do you think is the most important things you want as a player from a strength and conditioning coach?
Yeah, great question. I think for strength and conditioning coaches, number one, you've got to be malleable. Like you can't have one system and every player is going to fit into this lifting and running program, because everybody does different things based on position. You don't want your receivers and your DBs lifting 5 days a week. Like, they need to be sprinting. It's all about being faster. It's about making sure that they're pliable, making sure that they're stretched, their flexibility. And then when you get into kind of linemen, you have different categories that you want them to improve on. It's all about explosion and recovery and training the central nervous system. You've got to get that fast twitch going, because as offensive lineman, you're stagnant, and then you've got to explode. You've got to have same thing with defensive lineman. It's all about power. So, those programs have to be tailor made for that. I think the big thing, the buzzword now that everybody talks about, is load management. Like, how are we handling the workload for players?
And that's like GPS, using things like that.
Yeah, they track, how many steps you've taken, how far you've run. If all of a sudden we've got a guy, we've got to back down on that. So they work hand in hand with the athletic trainers from that capacity. I think strength coaches, look, you want everybody to get stronger, but you don't want to put players at risk. The one thing you can't do as a strength coach is get a guy hurt in the weight room or get a guy hurt in the off-season program. So it's tough for a lot of strength coaches, because they want to push the players and you want to get them stronger and make them better. But, the one thing that they are petrified of is, oh man, somebody blew a hammy. What was he doing? Sprints. Or, somebody strained a calf. What was he doing? He was doing plyometrics. Why are we doing plyometrics? So the Giants have really morphed the weight room and with the strength program of it. They use a lot more of the Kaiser machines, which is almost like a hydraulic resistance. Instead of weights on the bar, it's like a hydraulic resistance, which gives you consistent resistance. You can't kind of throw the weight and bounce the weight. So a lot of teams have gone into that mode, and a lot of it's for strength, but also injury prevention and a little bit easier on the joints. But I think, you look at also, when I say malleable as a strength coach, you've got to be able to tailor things for guys that are 9-10 years in the league. You've got a guy who's in first, second, or third year. They should have a different workout program and a different goal in the offseason. The challenge for strength coaches now is the offseason is shortened. You have less time. So it's not just less time to get guys into your program and build gains and strength, but the challenge is too, I have less time, which means I don't know where I can start. You may come in and you've been training for 6 weeks. You have a different starting point. I may have somebody else who came in who has off-season surgery. Maybe they've only been actually training for a week or two. I've got to put them on. I got to start them at a different level. So it all has to be, very tailored to the players, where they're at in their career, what position they play. And I think also as a player, the weight room was always our sanctuary. Like, that was where you go to kind of vent sometimes. So you trust your strength coach a lot. Like, you can go in there, maybe you're complaining about your coach, maybe you're complaining about a teammate, maybe you're complaining about your wife. They're like that's kind of
Sean never did that last thing, just for the record, by the way.
I wasn't married at that time. Wallace played, so
even now,
never
complains about it.
It's like,
neither do I.
You know the drill. It's like, my kid, woke up in the middle of the night with a sore throat. Like, that's where you go to vent and you kind of air out your laundry.
That's because the media's in the locker room and nobody's allowed. Even when Tom Coughlin was there, the one place where you did not want to be caught if you weren't a player, do not be in that weight room when you're not supposed to. He would let it fly on you if that was the case.
Yeah.
Real quick, just wanted one quick follow-up, as you kind of mentioned it in your answer. Injury prevention. The strength coach works in conjunction with the medical staff, right, to kind of create best practices. But the way I kind of explained to people, and please tell me if I'm wrong, strength and conditioning is injury prevention. Medical staff is injury healing, right? Like, the medical staff steps in once guys get hurt, but preventing those injuries, that's the strength and conditioning program, which is obviously led by the strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah,
correct?
No doubt about it. And I think, everybody wants to, whenever a player gets hurt, people always want to know, well, whose fault is it? Well, like, what's the injury? Because in football, it's a collision sport. It's not a contact sport.
Somebody falls on your leg. What are you supposed to do?
Like, people, guys are going to get hurt. Now, soft tissue injuries, when you hear that cliche a lot, what does that mean? Well, if somebody pulls a hamstring in practice, or because they're not in shape, or because they got fatigued, they got worn down, their conditioning wasn't up to, was it that kind of a soft tissue injury? Was it a tweak because they didn't warm up properly, or maybe they didn't recover from a previous workout? Those are all things that you kind of look at, and that's why I said strength coaches don't ever want to get blamed for those soft tissue injuries because of their program or because of something they did or didn't do. But to your point, the trainers, they are the glue. Like they're the Elmers. Like they're holding the team together. They're the ones that piece you back together when something's broken. They're helping you rehab. And when you look at the Giants, like they've been an integral part. Unfortunately, Saquon Barkley had an ACL injury. He had to rehab and come back from that. Daniel Jones is going through it right now.
Wanda Robinson went through it.
Sterling Shepard,
ACL and Achilles for him.
Yeah. So that's the training room is where you go to kind of get put back together.
Evan Neal, Andrew Thomas over the years, all that stuff.
It's a big part of it. But again, I'll go back to there's a saying like those who sweat more in preparation bleed less in battle. And I think that is kind of the mantra of the strength and conditioning program. As offensive linemen, we would always start training. Snee, Soyber, Deal, Kareem McKenzie. We always start like a couple weeks before the actual Offseason program started, because we knew that was how we were going to make our money. That's how we're going to win games in the fourth quarter. We were built in the weight room first. And I've always felt like if you have an offensive line that doesn't train together in the offseason, they will never be successful during the season. Mm-hmm. You have to train together. You've got to build that bond. Just like you go to boot camp. If you're a Navy SEAL, if you're a Green Beret, you go to boot camp. You got to establish the core. And I've got to trust you. And I got to know you're not going to bonk out on me in the fourth quarter. Like I know we put in the time. We put in the work together. I've got your back. You've got mine. That's how you build that core strength.
So sweat more, bleed less. I like that.
Yeah.
So that explains why David Deal never got hurt.
He sweated a lot. He was the Slimer, no doubt.
Giant fans love a winner. It's why they love Citizens, named a 2022 Best Bank in the U.S. by The Banker as the official bank of the Giants and sponsor of the Huddle. Citizens is made ready for fans of Big Blue. Learn more at citizensbank.com. Giants also decided, Sean, to move on from Thomas McGahee, the special teams coach. And look, it's unfortunate. We both known T-Mac for a long time. He won a Super Bowl ring with you guys in 2007. So now moving forward in special teams, again, I know you had a long career as a gunner on punt coverage. So you're very familiar with this stuff.
I was sneaky athletic.
Yes. Talk about a special teams coach and what you're looking for there, because it's really a unique guy, because besides the head coach, he's really talking to more of the team than any other coach on the roster, kind of bridging position groups and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, and that's a tough job, being a special teams coach, because sometimes you get players that don't really want to be on special teams. So you have guys that, you kind of got to motivate. But to your point, you've got offensive guys that now are being asked to play a defensive play. Now you've got receivers that are going to go down and be gunners and be on kickoff team and make tackles. It's also, there's so many different rule changes now too. Like you can't have, wedge blocking on kickoff return. You can't have two guys together on a double team. So there's a lot that kind of goes into it.
And the guys you're using, by the way, change all the time. Because when a starter gets hurt, guess what? Yeah. They take away one of your special teams guys. They put them on offense or defense. Then you have to figure out what to do with the guy off the practice squad or somebody that just showed up as a free agent claim.
I feel like the analogy for a special teams coach is kind of like the medic out on a battlefield. Like you just make do with what you have. Like you could be out there and you're trying to address a wound and like you don't have supplies. Like you're like MacGyvering it. Because if you have a linebacker go down in a game and now all of a sudden that backup's starting in that role, well, he's also my personal protector, or the ripple effect that it has from a substitution standpoint. That's why Saturdays are such a big, special teams walkthrough thing. You got to know not just who my starting 11 are on each special teams unit, but who are the backups to go in there.
It's almost like you're the little brother. The big brother gets to build his Lego thing with whatever he wants.
Right. You got the
and then whatever pieces are left, that's what you're stuck with. And you might start building, then he'll show up, I need that for the eyeball.
Yeah,
Sorry, I
was using that tire.
Yeah, exactly, right? So you almost have to use the leftover Legos to put a unit together.
Yeah, you do. And it's a tough job. And I tell you, as the season goes on, it gets even tougher as guys start to get nicked up, banged up. You try to limit reps too. You look at how many reps a guy is playing on offense or defense, and how you can kind of give him a blow here or there. But Thomas McGahee, you mentioned I was with him back when we won the Super Bowl in 2007. I've known him for a long time. He's a heck of a coach. He's an even better guy.
Great man.
This part of the game is always the toughest part when good men lose their jobs. And a lot of times it's not even a fault of their own. it's a production business. T-Mac knows that. But he's been a part of all kinds of success at the college level as well. He was down at LSU for a while too. Might have won a national championship.
I was going to ask. I think he did win a national title there, right?
Look, he's been at the top of the mountains in the NFL and in college football. So he will definitely be coveted. But he's one of those guys. He's a former player too. So like he gets it. He understands, and that means a lot to players when they know that you know what they're going through. So I'm sure T-Mac will end up somewhere, but. The thing that's always tough is when your kickers have a bad season. Like, I hate when people blame the kicking coach for that. Like, that's the special teams coach is never teaching this guy how to kick. Like, they already know how to kick. Like, you maybe help them out with techniques or different drills or do stuff, but, when it comes to the kicking, like that's kind of, that's on the kicker himself.
I'm surprised, Sean, teams haven't started hiring kicking coaches that are separate from the special teams.
Well, here's why.
Guys that specialize in kicking.
Right, but here's why. Kicking is like golf. Like, you don't want to bring in a golfer, and now I've got a golf swing instructor, and he's going to change your swing.
You need to almost match the instructor to the kicker, right?
Yeah, most coaches will say, I am not going to mess with your kicking motion. I will help you with some things that we can help out with the accuracy or maybe your approach, maybe your footwork. But your kicking swing, I'm not touching that. And it's kind of, that's...
Makes sense.
Like a golfer, you wouldn't want to start tweaking it, and unless you're, Butch Harmon.
You're ready for a change. Payday comes early with Citizens, so go to that retreat. New You moves to the country. Now you're raising goats and launching a lifestyle brand. Are you ready for all that life brings?
All right, final question. We're going to try to catch up at the Combine. We'll talk more specifically about free agency, the draft, and things like that as we kind of dive into that stuff a little bit in more detail. What do you think the most important part of this offseason is going to be, Sean? Is it the team's own free agents? Is it the draft? Is it bringing in other free agents? The Giants should have a significant amount of cap space. What do you think are the key touch points for you this offseason for this team to continue to, at least try to get back to the playoffs like they were in 2022?
Yeah, no, this is 10,000 feet above above the earth here viewpoint because – number one, like we don't even know what free agents are available and what the draft. We haven't gotten
who's getting tagged.
Yeah. We haven't gotten to that point. Yeah. But just kind of looking at it on a macro level, I mentioned the guards. Like the focus has to be we've got to improve the offense, we've got to improve the pass protection and the run game. And you've got your center, you've got your left tackle, so you've got those franchise players. Your right tackle needs to improve. We touched on that. So they need guards. Now, I think you draft one, you sign one. And, based on who's out there, I think it would be perfect scenario. You bring in a veteran guard, a proven veteran guard that could come in right away and make an impact. And then you draft someone for the future. And, depending on how the draft shapes up and who's where and, how deep is the draft at a certain position, I don't know what round you put that importance on. Is it a second rounder, a third rounder, or a fourth rounder? The depth of the draft will determine all that. But no doubt you need some young guards. You need some healthy guards. Like the Giants' health has to be paramount. You can't draft a guy that's got an injury history, not with what's going on with this O-line over the last couple of years. You need healthy guys that are available. That's huge. I think we talked about you can't have enough explosive playmakers. Look at what Miami's got down there with Tyreek Hill and with Waddle. And
just look at the division, Sean.
CeeDee Lamb and Gallup and Ferguson and Philly's got A.J. Brown
Brandon
and Devontae
Cooks,
Smith and Goddard.
Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson. Go down the list.
You forget about a wide receiver one. You need wide receiver 1, 2, and 3. Like you can never have too many of those guys. So I think that's big. I think running back is going to be an interesting part of this whole conversation.
Also going to have a new running backs coach, by the way, too, because he's going to be the offensive coordinator at Syracuse, which is a great job for him.
Yeah. So I think those offensively. Then the quarterback situation, obviously that's the elephant in the room. This is different. If Daniel Jones had played this whole season and things went sideways like they did and we still only had 6 wins, I think the conversation maybe is like, all right, next year is a big year for Daniel Jones and he's, now all of a sudden you're looking at it differently. The fact that he got hurt, I think that kind of changes the way that you look at everything because if he's not ready week 1, you have to have somebody here that can win right now. And maybe it's Tyrod, maybe it's DeVito. I don't know. They're going to evaluate all that. But you've got to see who's out there because you can't go into the season saying, look, we're all in on Daniel Jones being ready for week 1, and he's not. Like now all of a sudden you're going to get fired. if you don't have a game plan for that. So that will be an interesting part of the puzzle this offseason, what the Giants are going to do going forward. But I still feel like Daniel Jones, when he's healthy, he's still a damn good quarterback. And I think he's still going to be the Giants starter if and when he's healthy. If he can be ready week 1, great. But the one thing you don't want is you don't want to hobble Daniel Jones. You don't want a guy that's not 100% because he is a weapon running the football. This is different than Joe Burrow coming off an ACL injury or Tom Brady coming off an ACL injury. Quarterbacks that thrive from the pocket.
Look at how the Cardinals
Daniel Jones
handled
is outside.
Look at how the Cardinals handled Kyler Murray this year, for example. They waited for him.
Yeah, they waited. I mean, he was on IR to start the season. I don't even know if it was, week 8?
Might have been PUP. Didn't he start on PUP?
He was on PUP,
I think.
It was halfway through the season. And obviously Daniel Jones, his progress will dictate and determine that. But that's going to be a big part of the conversation this offseason.
And you mentioned they'll have to make some kind of decision on guys like Saquon Barkley, guys like Xavier McKinney, Dory Jackson, other guys that are free agents in the building. So those decisions to come as we embark on yet another offseason. Sean, this was fun all year, man.
Thanks, Sean.
This is really good stuff.
Enjoyed it, man. Good work.
I think the fans have really enjoyed it too, and we'll catch up with you down at the Combine in Indianapolis.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate it. Hey, we're undefeated in 2024. Just saying.
Giants Huddle Podcast, brought to you by Citizens, the official bank of the Giants. For Sean O'Hara, I'm John Schmelk. We'll see you next time.
You deserve to treat yourself, so turn your tax refund into a U fund and give yourself a Straight Talk Wireless Extended Silver Unlimited plan and get a new Samsung Galaxy A14 on them. You can get a great everyday value on wireless with Straight Talk's Unlimited plan starting at $25 a line per month for 4 lines. You'll save so much you'll be enjoying that refund all year long. It's the refund that keeps on refunding. Find Straight Talk at straighttalk.com or at your local Walmart store.
Taxes and fees not included. Offer valid through 4/14/24 while supplies last. Online only. Must purchase a Straight Talk Extended Silver Unlimited plan to qualify. Limit of 5 phones per customer. Family plan discount with 4 lines, all on the Silver Unlimited plan. Not combinable with auto-pay discount.
This is where projects come to life. Our showrooms are designed to inspire with the latest products from top brands, curated in an inviting, hands-on environment, and a team of industry experts to support your project. We'll be there to make sure everything goes as planned, from product selection to delivery coordination. At Ferguson Bath, Kitchen and Lighting Gallery, your project is our priority.
Find great brands like Monogram at your local showroom or visit us online at ferguson.com/build.